Europe, not strong enough to take on Russia, needs US help. Finland.
Here's a summary of the article.
Europe would be in trouble without the United States providing military assistance to Ukraine in the war launched by Russia, Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin said. Speaking in Sydney, Australia, on Friday, Marin offered a brutally honest assessment of Europe's current defence capabilities in light of the war, which began when Russian President Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine on February 24. I must be brutally honest with you, Europe isn't strong enough right now. We would be in trouble without the United States, Marin told Sydney's Lowy Institute think tank. The US has given a lot of weapons, a lot of financial aid, and a lot of humanitarian aid to Ukraine, said Marin, adding that many US politicians she has spoken to think Europe should be stronger. Ukraine must be given whatever it takes to win the war, she said, warning that if Russia wins its terrible gamble, it will not be the only one to feel empowered. Washington has been supplying Ukraine with US-made high-mobility artillery rocket systems, which have been described as a game changer in the fight against Russia. The Institute for the Study of War, a US think tank, said on November 13 that Ukraine's success in pushing Russian troops out of the key city of Kherson in southern Ukraine can be largely credited to HIMARS. It said Kyiv's success resulted in large part from the Ukrainian Armed Forces' innovative use of the HIMARS precision rocket system to disrupt Russian supply lines.
This post received a score of 7,000, with an upvote ratio of 92%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
From a purely geopolitical perspective, this war has been a net win for the US.
Two of our largest industries are defense and energy. This has been a great win after 4 years of Trump ruining relationships with our allies. I'd like to believe that by setting this interventionist precedent, we have also deterred other rivals from their nefarious pursuits. China and Taiwan. Hats off to the Biden administration on this one for a job well done.
Beyond all of that, it's proven that Russian weapon systems are vastly inferior, permanently fucking up that market and encouraging even distant countries to buy American.
The US Javelin missile system took what was once a huge advantage for Russia off the table. In the past, Russia was known for their ground-based forces backed up by very capable tanks. Tanks now are viewed as extremely expensive and easy to destroy.
To be clear, they were known for it, but it was always bullshit. Their tanks were always third-rate, and then they had the misfortune of being maintained and crewed by Russians. Or not maintained, to be more precise. And also everything of value down to the copper wire stripped out. I remember early in the war people would go on and on about how the Russian had 10,000 tanks, and you just could not get through to them that 7,000 plus of those were unusable husks sitting in a decaying warehouse or out in a field.
Greater than I remember early in the war people would go on and on about how the Russian had 10,000 tanks. This was a major concern. In 1979.
People seem to conveniently leave out that it's literally the same tanks from 1979 we're talking about. This was when the Soviet Union was spending 15 to 17% of GDP on military spending versus the 3.8% of today's Russia, where 1% of that is embezzled off, and #X200B, 50% of US military spending is maintenance. Just think about that.
Greater than 50% of US military spending is maintenance. Just think about that. I can believe it. I deal with the paperwork on that for a living. I once saw where one dishwasher's repairs on a ship was priced for 6 figures total.
I mean, I think that Russia would run out of money before it really got that far.
Can you imagine the ass-kicking the Russians would receive? If it weren't for their nukes, the Russians would be as frightening as Gambia. They can't even make it 50 kilometers from their borders.
TBH, I think Finland is one of Russia's biggest nightmares. With Finland joining NATO, NATO now has quick access to St. Petersburg and the Kola Peninsula. Russia is pretty fucked as far as any military expansion for as long as NATO exists. If, hopefully, when Ukraine joins NATO, then it's a done deal. Russia is locked into their current territories. Checkmate.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.